Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Open Spaces Committee meeting on Monday, the 17th of March at 7 p.m. We don't have any fire drills planned this evening, but in the case that there is one, please enter either in the fire drills behind me or the front door in which you came. Sharon, can I have this evening's apologies for absence?
Yeah, we've got Councillor Wenham, Councillor Tyler, Councillor Jay Taylor, and I haven't had an apology from Councillor Reynolds, but he's not here.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and Councillor Sam Taylor, my apologies. Councillor Sam Taylor.
Do we have any declarations of interest this evening? None. And public participation. Would any members of the public like to participate? Okay. Minutes of the Open Spaces Committee meeting on the 17th of February 2025. Can I please have a proposer and a seconder or any amendments? Is that a proposal, Councillor Dale?
Yes.
Yes, seconded by Councillor Thwaites and show of hands.
Yeah.
Carried.
You voting?
Yeah.
Okay.
One abstention.
Thank you. Item 6, splash pad consultation review, consideration and resolution. Is this you, Megan?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll just pull that one.
We might be a while. That can be a bit temperamental. Come up in late.
Fine. That's plugged in.
Is it plugged in?
No.
Is it the same HDMI?
Yeah, of course it is. So when we go
Just need this. Just want to see
Yeah. It would be different if it's the connection, don't it? This will be it's a little bit in the as well. Yeah. Next time. Yeah. I think we might just have to verbalise it coming to this one.
It's a verbal one, Megan.
Wiggle, wiggle.
Yeah, flip chart. Yeah, they didn't fail. Yeah, they're really nice with flip charts.
Is this the same way?
Yeah, I was going to say that you flipped it, the whole lot wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. be working. It's got HDMI. Yeah, we think it's a cable. It seems very loose.
Are the university swap them in?
Last chance saloon. See, it says computer. Oh, here we are. Yeah, might just have to read it out, unfortunately.
Joyce started in information.
Yeah.
Oh, it may have.
Did it? Hang on. Did you have the map?
It pops.
Did it?
Wait. The screen's gone blank.
Oh.
As soon as it goes black, it means it's
Oh. It makes you wonder whether it's on the dual thing.
Oh, it's not going to.
No.
Hold it.
All right, when it goes black. I can't see how Hobson yet. Oh, something's happening.
Wow,
Oh,
Ray.
I will hold it and you
No,
You
you're
can't
fine.
move, Sharon.
Oh,
That's fine.
What's hacking your computer?
I've got my finger on it.
What's hacking your computer?
I don't know. Right.
Oh,
No.
no, yeah, there you go.
Oh, no. Yep. Okay.
Just don't touch your laptop.
No.
Just don't breathe.
Okay, thank you everyone. So following last month's public consultation on the proposed splashpad scheme, I wanted to provide an update on the results of that consultation and also to review next steps for the scheme review. So before I go on to that, I thought it would be useful to briefly revisit the results of the pre-consultation exercise that was conducted in summer 2024, as this work helped to then inform the public consultation that was brought forward. So as a part of that exercise, 2 questions were asked of respondents. Do you want a splash pad in Attleborough, and why do you want or not want a splash pad in Attleborough? And in order to maximise survey feedback, I gave presentations at both Rosecroft Primary School and also Attleborough Primary School, in which parents and pupils were invited to complete the survey. And in total, 490 pupils and 120 parents completed the survey. And in addition to that, I also held an in-person event at Queen Square. And with those events combined, it resulted in 659 residents taking the survey, with an average of 91.49% stating that they wanted to see a splash pad brought forward in the town. And whilst the response was overwhelmingly positive, there were some concerns raised around antisocial behaviour and cleanliness of the site, and both of those points were addressed in the proposed operational model. So, for instance, we've now incorporated the inclusion of CCTV on site, clear signage, which outlines the expected behaviours of users, as well as a bow top railing around the perimeter of the site. And in terms of cleanliness, there is also incorporated into that plan dedicated on-site personnel who would be responsible for maintaining and cleaning the site. So that would be 1 hour before the splash pad opens and 1 hour after it closes. And they would also respond to any incidences that happen in between that point. So moving on to the actual public consultation. So it included 7 questions, which I'll just briefly read out. So the first one was, please could you enter your postcode to help us understand where responses are coming from? Do you support the location of the splash pad at the recreation ground near Dead Man's Hut in Attleborough? And the splash pad is proposed to operate daily from 12 PM to 6 PM from May to September. Would you use the splash pad during these hours? How frequently do you anticipate visiting the splash pad? So 4 times per week, 2 to 3 times per week, once per week, fortnightly, monthly, never. A splash pad would add to the community offer for young people in Attleborough and the surrounding area. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? What, if any, additional amenities would you consider for the splash pad site? And do you have any other comments or recommendations regarding the splash pad or its associated amenities? And in total, we received 229 responses, and 87% of those, or 200 residents, supported locating the splash pad at the recreation ground. 83% also indicated that they would utilise the facility during the proposed operational period. It is worth noting that there were some comments and feedback from respondents stating that they would prefer a slightly earlier opening time, around 10 or 11 a.m, to accommodate their younger children who have earlier bedtimes. And also there were some other recommendations around having a dedicated window of time for those with SEND children. And both of those suggestions could potentially be incorporated into the model if that is the preference of councillors. In terms of the frequency in which respondents would utilise the splash pad, the most common response from 64 respondents stated they would use it 2 to 3 times per week, and the second most common response from 53 respondents anticipated using it once per week. So from this survey, it demonstrates that there is a tangible want and need for the splash pad. And in terms of the questions that were asked around associated amenities and also any broader recommendations for the site, I've collated that information together into a word cloud, which you can see on the screen. The most common response that we received was around having public toilets incorporated into the scheme, which, as councillors will be aware, that's already been incorporated into there. The second most common response was around having changing facilities. So there are a couple of potential solutions there, one of which is obviously having changing facilities on site at the splash pad, and the other, which I previously discussed with Sharon, which could be done as an alternative or consecutively to this, is opening the Bono building, so it provides a relatively close private space for people to change in. There were also some other recommendations around expanding the seating area that's incorporated into the scheme so that more parents and carers could sit down and observe their children. And lastly, the most common response, again, was around having a cafe or some kind of vending machine or stalls on site so that people could readily access refreshments. So I'm going to review all of the proposals that were brought forward and see what realistically could be incorporated into the scheme, taking into account, of course, budget considerations as well. And in terms of next steps, I'll look to explore available grant funding opportunities to conduct survey works on site. So this includes topographical surveys, utility surveys, and also an updated budget. And if there aren't any grant funding opportunities available or we're unsuccessful in receiving grant funding, then I'll have a subsequent discussion with the ward members to see whether any funding could be released that they oversee. Next, I will look to finalise the scope of the capital works to be undertaken, and naturally that would be informed by the public consultation. And then it would be the case of securing the capital funds to deliver the project, which I anticipate would be a combination of grant funding, local council funding, and also from business sponsorships as well. Do you have any questions for me?
Does anyone have any questions on this?
Just think parking is my biggest one.
The biggest concern.
Well, yeah, we've got the football, it was always known as the football drive car park, that's been done. Are we going to charge for that? You know, so are people going to charge pay for parking to get there? If they're going to do, if it is paid parking, where else are they going to park? Because the Connaught Hall, in theory, can charge. You know, and the congestion over there now, you know, at the top of the field. So parking is my biggest issue.
Does anyone else have any comments, questions? No. Well, then in that case, Megan, it would just be to say thank you for the work that you've done today on this. It's been very, well, personally speaking, very exciting to see how it's unfolding. You know, the responses that we are getting from the public, obviously the majority seem to be positive by a landslide. So, yeah, thank you very much and well done.
A lot of work, Megan, thank you.
Next on the agenda this evening, we have item 7, which is the feedback from the Athletics Academy meeting on the 10th of March 2025. Sharon, would you like to give a quick run through?
Yeah.
The meeting with,
I was, yeah.
and they have had time to sort of like have a couple of committee meetings so that they consider any possible approaches, and I just made it clear that at the moment I'm not really looking to do a full expensive lease option, because they're only there on a Saturday and a Monday, and that's only like for a couple of hours for each of those times. So I think what's more appropriate is perhaps a service level agreement with them, sort of similar to what we're doing with the football club. And obviously the comments that they made were, they hope that we would pay regard to what use they make of the fields, and also what facilities are on offer for them, i.e. there really aren't any toilets for them, so that really ought to be brought into the charges that are made. Pay per play they were not averse to, but obviously there was a couple of points that they asked. They did ask if the container could be relocated, because at the moment they locate the floodlights in there, so when they have an evening and it's dark, they can't physically drag anything heavy. But we did mention that I think the sort of like, historically it's been frowned upon that you would have a container on the gamers, where the track is. So we did say that possibly perhaps not before that. And lastly, we did sort of agree that I would go away and work with Megan. So I contacted Megan to do a viability testing. So that would be based on their particular income, the facilities, the times that they use the field. So that there'd be a lot of factors that we would use to sort of like come up with a proposed fee, which would then be passed by the council to then pass it to them. So there is still a process to go by. It's sort of, sorry it's taken so long, but it's probably better to do it properly with consultation rather than just rushing it and then, that they're not happy about it and the council's not happy about it. Just a couple of things, well, one more thing that they did bring up, and obviously the condition of the field, which is something that can be improved. I did mention that we could get the groundsman to roller the track and also that particular side of the field, and also the pitches as well, one of the junior pitches, and also to consider that when they are doing their athletics, they get a lot of dog walkers that might have dogs off lead, but they might have dogs on lead, but they tend to walk through them. So instead of like cordoning the whole area off, which is a bit drastic, to try and put some sort of like noticeable signs up, so that people at least are made aware that this is for the athletics, if we are going to charge, because save putting fencing around etc., which is very cumbersome. Maybe notices are a nice happy medium, and then hope for the best. I can see Vera wants to say something.
No, when that field was introduced, it was free for everybody to use both fields every day, whenever they wanted it. It was for the community. Now I feel it's getting less and less for the community and getting more and more restricted. And I think that is wrong. It was a community asset when it was given, well, when we paid £1 for it, £2, I think it was, and it was for the whole community. Now it is very restricted when it can be used.
I've also forgot to mention that it came to light that Wyndham Athletics are using the field as well, but we weren't aware of that. So I'm now in contact with them, and I'm sort of like introducing the dialogue so that at least we can talk to them to say, you've come onto the field, you charge your members, you're using the field, but you haven't even sought permission. So
no, we've had problems with dog walkers in the past, and I'm a dog walker. I'm also been involved in sport, so I'm on both sides. But you know, the dog walkers, they've been restricted to the backfield, and now it's getting tighter and tighter. They moan about dogs not being exercised, you know, walking around the streets. It's just becoming very restrictive, and I think it's wrong that people are being penalised for other people. So it's got to be use for everybody. You know, it's got to be a field that was intended for use for everybody. Sorry.
How can that be achieved though, now that we've set a precedent that the athletics are using it?
So sorry, get my hobby horse. One side of the community then is being pushed out for another sort of community. So is that fair? Whoever it is, whether it's dog walkers pushing out footballers or footballers pushing, it shouldn't be so.
I suppose we did mention that Jubilee, when the Jubilee Country Park comes about, there'll be a really lovely area there with woodland walks, etc., which will be ideal for dog walks, very substantial
Yeah,
as
but
well.
It's not going to
But
be
not-
for a long time.
And also, I think in that respect, you could take a dog for a walk through there, but I don't think it's like the same off-lead, like
Exercise,
like-
training.
yeah,
Mm.
they're two very different areas.
Mhm.
So when they first said about obviously paying any kind of sum, but obviously there's different rules and restrictions for the top field where
Mhm.
top or bottom, depending on where
Yeah.
you stood, where the football's played. And they said about their container. Now, when the container came up, I did say, like, I can't speak for the 15, but I will say that I think it's highly unlikely that anyone's going to agree to have a container put on that second field, because we've always tried to keep that open for all, and the top field more dominated by sport, and not let that spill into the second field. Obviously, when there's children playing, children exercising, or, you know, taking part in this activity, it is then a concern that, yes, it's at their own risk, they know that the field has other uses, that dogs might not be kept on the lead in their immediate vicinity. And to be honest, I did think that perhaps just some signage to say, look, on these times and dates, you know, children playing athletics on this field, just so people are aware, you know, maybe please could you keep your dog on the lead? Not you have to, but just, you know, please could you, if you're minded.
Yeah.
But I really, we're between a rock and a hard place, because both
We are.
users are already using it.
Mhm.
Councillor Thwaites.
Going back to Vera's point that it was given to the community, was the whole parcel of land given to the community?
Yes, both fields.
If it was given to the community, I don't like to say this, you can't charge it. I don't think it's right. Having gone through all of this, if it's given to the community on a peppercorn pound purchase, I don't think you can charge it. I really don't.
But
But the
then,
footballer charge.
on the flip side, their long jump pit, that piece of land is only used by them. That can't be used by the community. So do we ask them to remove their long jump pit? Because that's then,
You're not going to win this either way around. Whichever you do, you're going to upset somebody. But if it's a public space, don't think you can charge people for it.
Okay. In the respect that both the athletics and the football actually are profiting from using an open field, they charge their members. So in that case, they are profiting. So in the respect of dog walking and things like that, yep, dogs are walked around there all the time. In that second field, most of the people will stick to letting them off the lead. But I would say that we need to have some signage, or at least they put up signage telling the dates that they're going to be using it, so that dog walkers can expect just to be more careful with children in play.
I was just going to ask Anne, were you here when we had all the, you were, thank you, enough said then.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah.
When it came to punching
the dogs.
and a meeting in here, which was not very pleasant. Ray Reynolds was chairman of the open spaces at that time, and it was not a very pleasant situation.
But also the recreation ground is for sports. No dogs were allowed on there.
No,
So is it fair that you're now trying to get rid of dog walks on games as well for sports?
Yeah,
When
we
they've
could-
already got the recreation ground where dogs aren't allowed?
no, because the recreation ground was used for dogs at one time,
But now it's not.
and now that was taken away because gamers
Yeah.
was there.
So really, all dog walking areas are being taken away for sport.
Sorry.
Sorry, I'm a dog lover.
Get off on a tangent.
Councillor
It's
Floyd.
annoying.
If we're saying that the recreation grounds for sport, why aren't they up there?
I think because the club have expanded so much,
They've
I'm talking
let
about the football.
Hours.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the
Yeah.
running and jumping club.
I don't think well,
We're saying that,
They've just never used it.
it's,
have they?
yeah, and the
is
size
that
of
not
the
something we
track,
should be discussing with
they
them?
probably put the track there because there was that space to put it on.
I wasn't on the council at the time, so
The track was put there for the boxing club originally, not for the athletics. It was put there for the boxing club to do some timing and training and fitness, and that's what it was originally there for, the boxing club.
Eventually, I mean, it's sort of understood that when the 3G pitch is built, they have got a track marked out in the plans there. So if that comes about in the next 2 years, it's sort of up for debate whether the athletics club will or will not transfer over to the 3G pitch. I know for a fact that if they do charge for that, because they have to spend so much money on the facilities, there will be much higher charges than what we would be charging if we did charge.
can I make a suggestion? I feel like this is a little bit like, it is not off topic, it is on topic.
It is off
but-
topic.
But it's also, so I think the running track was already there. They started using the running track. It does cost us a fair amount of money every year to line that out. And other members of the community can use it. Like if you wanted to go for a run this evening, you could go use it. But they are the primary users. So I do think it's fair that they make a contribution towards its lining, because if we stopped lining it, they would likely be the only people that really had, a lot to say about it. I then think that if there was a contribution made towards that labour and that material outlay that we have to do with the purchase of the paint and the liner and the time that it takes our ground staff to actually undertake that piece of work, we're not then charging them pay per play. So we're not charging them for the use of the field, but we're asking them to make a contribution to that labour and that cost. I then think the long jump pit, specifically, the small piece of land that is on, and the parcel of land that their container is on, should be payable, because that is then not able to be used by the wider community. They are taking sole ownership of that piece of land. And the precedent's already been set now, because the football club have for years paid, whether it's a large or small sum, for the piece that their building is on, while obviously it is only the building, not the pitches, it's just the building, then that same principle should be applied. Now, the football club have asked for a 10-year lease for that building to safeguard it and to give them some assurances that youth football will be played in that area for years to come. And we've already agreed to the principle of that, and Sharon's obviously now working to draft that lease. I don't think just for the long jump pit and for the container, a lease would be necessary, but as you say, a service agreement, probably something very similar to what we have like with the Look More Kindness CIC for use of our cabin. And I think, maybe 1 or 2 sides of A4 is sufficient. But I do think that a token amount, which obviously you've just said that you're working with Megan to, you look at, you know, what is actually a viable amount for them to pay based on their income and expenditure. We want to be fair. We don't want to put any club or group in the town at a disadvantage. But I think for those two specific things, and I think we actually agreed that at the last meeting, there should be an amount payable and a formal agreement in place, no matter how informal that formal agreement is.
Yeah.
And then I think if they make a contribution to the line marking, which is really done to their benefit above anyone else's, then the pay per play kind of principle could probably fall away, which obviously, as Councillor Thwaites has said, that is then charging them to use that land, which is open to them by default.
I just did a calculation of, say, if you charged what we were going to charge the football club per session, if you did that equivalent, it actually comes to 1,560, which oddly enough is the almost exact amount that we pay for the paint. So if you then didn't have the principle of charging pay per play, and that falls away, but you actually said, however, you have to supply the paint, if you want the pitch, if you want the track marked, then if you also, if you didn't want the workman to do it, you know, the groundsman, you could actually ask them to mark it out themselves and then apply for a grant for a line marking machine from the grant fund.
I think that would overcomplicate it a little bit. I think if we're already doing something and the system's not broken, then we could carry on doing it. But I just think they should be paying a contribution towards it.
Yeah. That paint is really expensive.
And then work out what that contribution is based on the figures that you and Megan are going to be looking into.
I just think that we've got to be consistent. And whatever we do for one party, we've got to do for all parties that have got an interest in the place.
Councillor Thwaites?
Nominal figure sounds about £1,500 a year to me. And that way around, no one's out of pocket. And I don't think that's unreasonable.
I don't think they should be paying to use the site, but they should be paying for the facilitation of the use of the site.
That's a tiny way around it.
That's a better way of saying it. I was a bit round the houses, weren't I? Councillor Dalton.
I will point out that the youth football have increased the number of pitches that they've got in that space as well. There is more pitches there now than there ever was.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Just being a dinosaur, originally there was one pitch on there only allowed because of the overflow on the wreck. Sometimes it could, and since then it's just topsy grown and grown and grown.
Councillor Thwaites.
I have no bearing on whatsoever. Are there any covenants or restrictions that we should be aware of? Can we or can't we do anything on that? I don't know.
We can't put a permanent building on there. We can't put a building on there with footings.
Okay, it's got to be
And you
movable.
can only have one sports facility on there, one sports building on there without footings.
Okay. Interesting.
So, round up.
Sorry.
Sorry. Sharon needs the consensus. So the consensus is, Andy, you are a bit more succinct with the words. Do you want to do this?
They shouldn't be paying to use the site, but they should be paying for the facilitation of the use of the site.
Yeah.
Or words like that.
Nice.
Look back on the record.
And that we receive proportionate cost recovery.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
What's proportionate?
Well,
So they all go to
a
pocket.
figure is going to come back to committee, but Sharon wanted to work with Megan to number crunch their annual finances. And then put that against what it's
I
costing
don't like the
us.
word proportionate on that, perfectly frank.
I've
The
definitely
council shouldn't
put
be
that
out of
in.
pocket,
No.
and the athletics club shouldn't be subject to punitive charges.
Viable?
They just should be covering the costs.
Yeah.
We don't expect them to cover the whole cost, do they, when the whole community can use it outside of their group?
You can't have everything all the while. Can't work like that.
But they're the only ones who use the line track, aren't they?
Can't you, but
They-
if
they
then
do
someone who paid to play is
yeah.
1,500 quid a year,
I
then
mean,
Yeah.
maybe the public do run round it, and we do know
They're-
that
they're
Wyndham
bound.
But
Wyndham
say-
can use it.
But say, for instance,
That's another issue.
that they look at their figures and their income's only £900 for the year. And then we're gonna say, well, we
Well,
want.
that's the discussion to make.
Exactly, that's what I
Yeah.
mean, we're
Maybe
not
the
agreeing the figure today,
£1,500
the £1,500
is
is
a starting
irrelevant,
point.
it's like, do you know what I mean?
It's a
That's not a
starting point.
confirmed figure, is
no,
it?
I think it's a point to start from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, when I do have conversations also with Wyndham, because that's also coming up, I mean, could they share the cost of the?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a case of could they should.
Fine, okay.
I don't think that's unreasonable. They're using a facility as a.
Huge recreation ground next to the
Considering
police
they didn't really
station.
ask permission
Why
in
are we
the
using
first
that?
place.
So just the
Yeah.
resolution part though, Sharon, can you just read
Yeah,
back to us?
they
please?
should not pay to use the site, but pay for the facilitation to use the site. And we need to seek cost recovery, which is proportionate. Sharon and Megan will still do the number crunching, bring that back to council, but the council should not be out of pocket. And we have to bear in mind that the athletics track is predominantly used by the Appleborough Athletics as well as Wyndham.
Are you happy with that,
Yeah,
Andy?
yeah,
Are you happy to make that
yeah,
proposal?
I'll propose that.
And can I have a second to that proposal, please? I've got councillor Dalton, can I have a show of hands, please?
Reluctantly.
Yeah. definitely.
That's unanimous.
Yeah, beautiful.
Next on the agenda this evening, we have item 8, which is open spaces update for all areas, verbal report.
We've now started work on developing Birch Drive. So I've met with a company to quote for the path. I feel I could use the groundsman, but I feel as if the paths that they are capable of doing would not look as professional as something which might be chip and tar, which will look nice sandy colour, look in keeping with the area. And also they will look to do the same material for the pad as well. So I'm waiting for a quote to come through on that. So I'm now going to start researching chess table, an outdoor one, very sturdy. And they have dug out the beds so that we're now going to obviously focus on planting the sensory plants. So that instruction has been given. So I'll keep you posted. But any input, if anybody wants to make any suggestions, they're welcome. And also, the same company is going to come and just give us an estimate, because I suspect that the cemetery roadway is for shingles at the moment, and that has started to sort of like, the edges have started to look really tatty. So they will quote for, again, tar and chip, and they will also quote for putting the edging in as well. So that will be a really nice look. But we know that that will be quite expensive, so that could be something that we do in phases. And however much it costs, I probably might have to do 3 to 5 years worth of work on that. We'll just have to be patient and do it bit by bit, because I reckon it will be, I don't know, I can't imagine how much it would.
Are we looking at steel edgings again?
I think they were wooden. There's a lot of wooden in there. Yeah, we could get a cost for the steel, but I think he was
That
looking
will
to
last a
quote
lot longer.
Pardon?
That will last a lot longer.
Yeah, steel would be good. I did look at the stone, but we're a bit conscious that the diggers might go over that and then it would crack them. So yeah, it could be wood or steel, but steel might be quite expensive. But I can ask him. That's really the point. Yeah, and I think that's it on the open spaces. I'm still trying to push the solicitors to act on. I'm closer on Jubilee Country Park than I am for Blackthorn. I seem to be having trouble getting them to talk to each other on Blackthorn, but I think they have commissioned a solicitor from the developer, so I have tried to push that last week. So I'll keep pushing that because we want that to be resolved as soon as possible.
Just mindful, the spend, the S106 monies, the deadline is next year, 2026. Yes,
What for the
73,000.
Oh, on Blackthorn?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that money for those improvements, the
Yeah.
spend date is moving
I
closer.
did, yeah, okay, I'm glad you said that, yeah.
And also, do we have an update on Leyland Road play area?
Well, yes,
I know
yeah, sorry, I
you've
should have
been
said that as well.
you've been trying to secure funding, but it's
Yeah, I'm 17,000
not having a lot of
short.
luck, are we?
No, but I thought I was going to let you know that in order to get that moving, we were unsuccessful with our lottery funding. And also we did actually have some work to be done on that because the wet board of the surfacing is starting to crack really badly, and there is one with the main piece is quite rotten. So I was going to ask if I put that on the agenda for the full council and via some of the unspent money, because we're literally 2 weeks from the end of the financial year. We've got a contingency that hasn't been used of 12,500, and there is 5,000 in the budget for play equipment. So I'm almost there. So I might have to put that onto the agenda so that we can get
And then we can
put
just
an order in,
put
and
the order in
then
and
I
get
can
it
put an
done.
order in. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a modified scheme. It's not as grand as what you first saw, but I did pass by the reduced scheme already. You
Okay.
have seen that. Yeah.
Okay.
Are we going to get it in before the end of the year? The financial year?
Yeah.
As in approved, get on with it,
No, that's true. It'll be the next full council.
maybe do an EGM
Yeah.
if we need to.
We can always have an EGM, shall
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we had on for a while, have we?
Okay.
we? If we must.
All right then.
If we must.
Go for it. Yeah. Good point, Ada. Thank you.
Yeah, that was, well thought of.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Sharon on any of our open spaces? No. Okay, moving on then, we have item 9, consideration of a buddy bench, Queen Square or other locations for consideration and resolution. I will say, this was something that was put forward by Tracy Turner of Turner's Occupational Health and Wellbeing Services, with the offer to actually purchase the bench, should the town council agree. I did have a brief discussion with Tracy about this. The preferred location is Queen Square. Obviously, we have lots of benches in Queen Square at the moment. But should members be minded to agree, I was actually going to say, we had recently, I think at our last meeting, discussed some works in the cemetery for the VE and VJ Day memorials. And actually the bench at the front of the square, the black one that is a war memorial bench, could be relocated and repurposed in the cemetery, so that when we put that garden in, we would just use that bench, which would actually be quite fitting.
Yeah.
And we could then have the vacancy, like a vacant plot. Councillor Dalton.
Yeah, when we did discuss it, we talked about 2 benches, one for VE
Yeah.
and one for VJ.
Yeah.
One either side.
2 buddy benches?
No. So
No.
for the cemetery.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So however we do
So,
it, it needs to be the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Fine.
What are members' views on the proposal there on the buddy bench?
I mean, that's just do you want to work with Turners and see if they want to choose one if they're going to buy it?
Well, in fairness, I had actually looked at some designs with Tracy when we discussed it previously, and we didn't have a costing, but she was quite happy with a design like this one, the neutral one that was in the meeting pack, the one that wasn't so garish.
I quite like the third one. Oh, no, the second to last. I don't like the garish colours. I'm sure they could do it in different colours.
Is that the one that's like
Because you're
French?
actually, that's why I bought the curved one in the square as a
yes.
friendship bench, because you can actually sit and face people, whereas if you sit on a long one, it's very difficult. And I don't
Is
know
this
where I
all through
bought
the
that.
same company? Sharon?
No, they're all
which
different
company?
companies, so I put the name like Snob, Marmax,
Oh.
and Neptune.
I wouldn't want it in those colours.
No.
No.
Really not.
No.
But it just means you can actually face
Yeah.
somebody and talk to them rather than,
Yeah.
Would we have space then on the square for something like that? Because obviously, if you take one out, which I agree, it's a good idea,
Yeah.
is that going to give us sufficient space to put something like that in? Because I like that idea, Vera, but I agree with the colour.
I mean, we're sitting side by side, I can't see your face, I have to keep
No,
turning.
not this year.
Would I do that to a complete stranger?
No.
Whereas if you're sitting one each side, you're looking.
Yep.
That's my,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I can see you, I can talk to you because I can
But
see
you-
you.
Yeah, I know, the bright colour might not be in keeping with.
Oh, I don't think the bright colour, no.
Yeah,
Not the colour.
to be honest, I will say as well, I do quite like that this one's engraved, so it kind of
Yeah.
gives a bit of context.
Well, I just
to
think
what
you can
you're
get anyone
putting into it.
engraved.
Could we have those engraved? I don't know if they just come as standard, because they're from like,
Yeah.
So they have a
companies that
plate
are-
made.
Yeah,
we could have a plate made.
you could have a plate made,
Well,
yeah.
it's done.
Yeah, you could even have a plate made. So you want something along the lines of this, but
Yeah.
not
Not
coloured
like
and
that.
engraved. Yeah,
Something that's
Yeah,
more suitable for the
something more
environment.
suitable,
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
you know, colour more wood.
Yeah. So
So,
we'll do
so,
some work.
so I think make an inquiry, see
Yeah,
if we
yeah.
could get a hybrid of like these two.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then perhaps have a word with Tracy
Yeah,
before
yeah.
bringing it back to committee to
Yeah,
make
that
sure she's
sounds
happy and also happy
Yeah.
with whatever
I get you.
the quote is.
Lovely, yeah, okay, clear.
But the principle of a buddy bench is one that the council is supporting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you. In addition to that, obviously it says Queen Square or other locations. On this occasion, obviously Tracy has made an offer to fund it. Is it something that you think maybe we should be looking to incorporate some of our play areas as opposed to Queen Square? I'll leave that as an open question.
Yeah,
Think on it, everybody.
yeah, okay.
Okay, so there we are. That's the main business of the agenda done. We're back to item 10, which is our second public participation. Would any members of the public like to participate? Yes, Leslie.
Just going back to gamers, who covers the insurance of the buildings? The container and the,
Because it's their mobile board, isn't it?
yeah. So, yes, so I was just thinking that would be another expense for the athletics club as well, if they've got to cover the insurance for
For
their
their
container.
They probably already
Yeah,
have
yeah,
insurance, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Leslie?
No, thank you.
No.
Oh, sorry, Nigel.
Any other takers? No? Okay, well then, item 11, items for the next agenda. I think obviously the buddy bench will be coming back.
Yeah.
We had a couple of items to go to full council, but as always, councillor Thwaites?
I would like to throw the chapel into the conversation.
Yes,
It's appropriate for this particular.
this is the committee for such business.
Jolly good. I
That
think
was, sorry,
No,
no, no, I was going to say that was on the agenda years ago to be
Years ago.
redone up
Yeah.
and used as a community facility, but I don't know what happened
Now,
to
I
it.
have to say, if you're going to spend money on the drive, you pull
Yeah.
up to an eyesore. And I think that's a great shame. That
It
should
is a
be an
shame.
asset for the community, and it's
Mhm.
not.
Yeah.
I think we need to look at that.
Yeah.
I know it won't be cheap, but I think we need to do something with it.
Okay.
It'd be relatively easy to fix up before it gets too deteriorated.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's the problem, if you leave it too long,
Yeah.
it costs too much. It's not listed or anything daft like that, is it?
I don't think so.
But I'd like to see us maybe have a conversation around that.
Well, thank you for putting it
Yes.
forward. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, the meeting is closed.
If you how to get the electric up
Something
there.
about that, you know,
Yeah, how to
Vera.
get the electric up there, what it could be used for. Yeah, we did.
Yes,
We
yes,
did.
yes.
And I'm